The rusted pickup shuddered to a stop under fading Texas dusk, its passenger stepping out, a decorated general fallen from grace, silent and haunted. His eyes held secrets darker than the night itself, but what happened next will shock even those who thought they'd seen everything. But first, let's go back to the beginning. The twilight cast long shadows across the cracked pavement, the fading light struggling to reach the rusted contours of the pickup. Dust clung to the worn-out tires like layers of forgotten years, and the faint hum of cicadas filled the air, an almost eerie stillness settling over the empty highway. Jake studied the truck as it settled to a stop, the engine wheezing faintly before dying out completely. It was as if the vehicle itself was begging for mercy, a relic dragged unwillingly into the present day. Billy's rough boots hit the gravel first, sending small clouds into the cooling air. Jake's gaze sharpened, taking in every detail. The way Billy's fingers trembled just slightly, the tension coiled beneath his weathered exterior. There was desperation in those hands, worn and calloused from years of hard labor, but also a flicker of something more, guilt, maybe, or fear. The truck's condition wasn't just bad luck or neglect. It spoke of a man burdened by more than rust and mechanical failure. Mia's eyes met Jake's, her breath catching at the sight of the passenger door opening. The general's movements were precise, almost mechanical, but every inch of him radiated authority. His uniform was immaculate, pressed with the kind of care that betrayed a lifetime of discipline. The sharp gold braid on his shoulder, the polished brass buttons, all stood in stark, surreal contrast to the dusty, beaten truck. Jake's heartbeat quickened. Here was a man used to order and respect, suddenly out of place in the decay of this forgotten highway. General Harold Montgomery's face was a mask, unreadable, carved from years of command and secrecy. His eyes, a piercing steel blue, flicked briefly over Jake and Mia before settling with quiet intensity on the two officers. There was no hint of surprise, no flicker of discomfort. Instead, an air of quiet calculation, like a chess master gauging the next move. Jake's hand instinctively hovered near his sidearm, not because he felt threatened yet, but because the situation demanded caution. He wasn't dealing with a common roadside stop. This was something else entirely, something that didn't fit the usual script. Billy shuffled nervously beside the general, the difference between the two men stark, one a relic of the working class, the other a relic of military tradition. It was a collision of worlds that made Jake's mind race. "General Montgomery," the man said, voice low but clear, carrying the weight of command. "I assume you're aware why we stopped you." Jake swallowed, carefully choosing his words. "Your truck was weaving and emitting heavy smoke, sir. It's dangerous, and frankly, it's not exactly street legal." The words hung between them, polite but firm. The general nodded, unfazed. "We're aware. It's a temporary situation." His gaze flicked to Billy, who shifted uneasily, avoiding eye contact. Jake's instincts screamed there was more beneath the surface. Temporary? What kind of temporary situation involves a vehicle like this? And why are you two on this road at this hour? Billy finally spoke, voice rough but edged with something sharper. A warning, maybe, or resignation. "Look, officer, we don't want any trouble. Just trying to get through." The general stepped forward, cutting the tension with his authoritative presence. "We're on official business. I can assure you, officer, that this isn't just a joyride." Jake's brows furrowed. Official business? On a rundown pickup at dusk, miles from the nearest town? It didn't add up. Mia's voice was barely above a whisper. What kind of official business takes a general down a road like this in a truck like that? Jake's eyes flicked back to the general, reading every nuance. The subtle tightness around his mouth, the glint of urgency in his gaze. The man carried a weight beyond his rank, a hidden story lurking beneath the uniform's impeccable surface. Then Jake caught it, a small, nearly imperceptible scar along the general's knuckle, a sign of past battles far removed from the polished ceremony of his current appearance. It was the first crack in the facade, the hint that beneath the rigid discipline was a man who had seen hard truths, maybe even painful secrets. The air between them thickened, the quiet hum of cicadas now drowned out by the unspoken tension. The pickup sat like a stage prop, its rust and smoke belying the gravity of the moment. For Jake and Mia, this stop was no longer just a routine check. It was the first chapter of a story that promised to unravel far beyond the cracked asphalt of this rural highway. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the world into deepening dusk, Jake realized that whatever lay ahead, the truth inside that truck would change everything they thought they knew about duty, loyalty, and the price of secrets kept too long. The air was heavy with dust and the fading scent of burnt oil as Jake and Mia stood near the pickup, the night pressing in around them like a tightening noose. The stark incongruity of General Harold Montgomery's presence in this forsaken vehicle gnawed at Jake's mind, demanding answers beyond the routine. Mia's eyes never left the general's stoic figure, as if she could pry secrets loose with sheer focus. Billy shifted uneasily, his rough hands fumbling as he cleared his throat, the weight of his story beginning to spill in hesitant fragments. "I was under his command, years ago, before all this," he said, nodding toward Montgomery. "General Montgomery. He wasn't always like this. This is just the shell, what's left after everything fell apart." His voice dropped low, as though afraid the wind itself might carry away forbidden truths. Jake stepped closer, catching the flicker of something raw in Billy's gaze, reverence tangled with pain. "What happened to him?" Jake asked quietly, knowing the answer would likely be more complicated than a simple reprimand or retirement. Billy's eyes darkened. The scandal, the operation that went wrong. They blamed him, made him the fall guy for decisions made in rooms where men in suits never got their hands dirty. His words spilled out in a rush, each syllable steeped in bitterness and loyalty. He went dark after that, disappeared from public life. No press, no appearances, just this. He gestured at the battered truck, a symbol of exile and self-imposed punishment. Mia's brow furrowed, processing the revelation. Why would a man like that, a general, choose this life? Why come out here to these empty roads? Billy's gaze flicked to Montgomery, who remained motionless, his eyes distant but alert. "Because here, there's no pretense, no cameras, no politicians spinning lies. Just the truth, buried beneath dust and silence." There was a fierce protectiveness in Billy's voice, a loyalty born from years of shared battles and shared betrayals. Jake's mind raced. The public knew only the headlines: a military failure, a career destroyed, a man disgraced. But the fragments Billy offered hinted at a deeper, darker narrative, one veiled in secrecy and manipulation, where the general's fate was sealed not by battlefield mistakes, but by unseen powers guarding their own interests. "Do you think Montgomery's innocent?" Mia asked, voice low and guarded. Billy didn't hesitate. "I know he's innocent. He was sacrificed so others could save their skins. The truth never came out. Not the whole truth." His eyes met Jake's, burning with conviction. "That's why I stayed. I believe in him, even if the world doesn't." The general finally spoke, his voice calm but carrying an undeniable weight. "Loyalty is rare in this world. I once believed in the chain of command, in honor, in justice. But when those values are twisted by politics and fear, a man has little choice but to vanish, to protect what remains of his integrity." His gaze locked on Jake's. "You don't know the half of what's at stake." Jake swallowed hard, the gravity of the moment sinking in. This was no ordinary traffic stop. It was a crossroads between hidden history and the present, a juncture where personal sacrifice clashed with institutional betrayal. The rusty truck, the haunted driver, and the fallen general formed a fragile tableau of fractured honor and unresolved conflict. Mia's fingers twitched near her holster, a subtle signal that the situation was far from safe, despite the calm words exchanged. The officers shared a glance, a silent acknowledgement that they were now entangled in a narrative far beyond speeding tickets and broken taillights. Jake's voice was steady, though his thoughts churned beneath. If what you say is true, then why now? Why come out of the shadows tonight? Montgomery's eyes narrowed slightly, the hint of a plan concealed behind his calm exterior. Because some truths refuse to stay buried forever, and because there are those who need to know what really happened, no matter the cost. As darkness fully enveloped the highway, the fragile threads of past and present intertwined. Secrets long buried began to surface, pulling Jake and Mia deeper into a labyrinth of deception, where every answer risked igniting a new danger, one that threatened to consume them all. The fading light of dusk cast long shadows across the cracked pavement, mirroring the fractures in the story that was unfolding before Jake and Mia. The general's face, once rigid and unreadable, softened into something raw and human. His voice, low and gravelly, cut through the thickening silence. They want the public to see me as a failure, a disgrace, he said, bitterness threading each word like a poisoned needle. But the truth? I tried to stop a cover-up. Orders that would have cost innocent lives. I paid the price for standing against them. Now I'm just a ghost, trying to live a simple life away from the mess. Jake felt a cold shiver crawl down his spine. There was no bravado here, no theatrical confession meant to garner sympathy. It was a man stripped bare by betrayal, burdened by the weight of truths too dangerous to speak aloud. The rusty pickup, the peeling paint, the black smoke trailing behind, it was no accident. It was exile, a deliberate shedding of status and security, trading the spotlight for anonymity and silence. Before Jake could respond, his radio crackled sharply, breaking the stillness. The dispatcher's voice was urgent, laced with tension, that instantly demanded his full attention. Officers Reynolds and Torres, you need to hear this. New intelligence coming in from military sources confirms the scandal involves top-level officials. There's evidence of war crimes, falsified reports, and deliberate sacrifices of soldiers for political gain. This isn't just a failed operation, it's a systemic cover-up. Mia's breath caught. Jake's heart hammered in his chest. The pieces clicked into place, forming a picture far darker and more vast than they had imagined. This was no isolated incident. It was a rot spreading through the highest ranks, a betrayal of everything their country was supposed to stand for. Jake's eyes locked on General Montgomery. The man before them was more than a disgraced officer. He was a sentinel of truths buried beneath layers of lies and deception. The quiet dignity of a soldier who had stood alone against a tide of corruption surged from Montgomery's posture, undiminished by the years of disgrace and abandonment. Disgust and anger simmered beneath Jake's calm exterior, flaring like embers threatening to ignite. How many lives had been sacrificed on the altar of ambition and self-preservation? How many families shattered because a few powerful men chose expedience over honor? The rusted pickup now felt like a grim metaphor, an old warhorse, battered and cast aside, yet still carrying the weight of a story no one dared to tell. Mia stepped closer, her voice low but fierce. We're not just dealing with a traffic violation anymore. This is monumental. What do you want us to do? Montgomery's gaze sharpened, a flicker of the commanding presence that once defined him resurfacing. Expose the truth. Find the evidence they buried. I've been silent too long. If this stays hidden, more lives will be destroyed. We can't let that happen. Jake swallowed hard, realizing the gravity of the moment. This was no longer a routine stop on a rural highway. It was the opening chapter of a battle that could shake the very foundations of the military and government. The stakes were immeasurably high. Justice, truth, and countless innocent lives hung in the balance. The night deepened around them, the stars indifferent witnesses to the unfolding drama. The pickup's worn engine ticked faintly, a relic of better days, now a vessel of buried secrets. Jake glanced back at the general, seeing in him not the fallen soldier the world had condemned, but a man forged in honor and broken by betrayal. For the first time, Jake felt the weight of history pressing down on this roadside encounter. The unexpected stop had transformed into a summons to action, an invitation to peel back the layers of deception and confront the ugly truths lurking beneath polished headlines. In that charged silence, the past and present collided. The general's scandal was not just a story of one man's fall, it was a reckoning waiting to be unleashed. And Jake, Mia, and the unlikely convoy on this forgotten Texas highway stood at the precipice of revealing a truth that would not stay hidden much longer.